pitiable, as they are vulnerable to all sorts of abuse and are often shortchanged in their wages. From meager pay packets to sexual exploitation to poor basic facilities, these migrant women bear the maximum brunt. How long would it be before these marginalized section of society are paid heed to? Is anyone even willing to hear their woes? We'll try and find out in the next 1 hour. Welcome to Gender Discourse. I'm Lottie Alaric. To take this discussion forward, I have in the studio 4 distinguished guests. I'm very happy to have with me Dr. Syed Mubin Zehra, who's a social analyst and also a columnist. I welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Sitting next to her is Ms. Khadija. She's a human rights activist, so thank you for being with us today. And sitting right next to her is Indrani Mazumdar, who's from the Center for Women Development Studies. Welcome to the show, ma'am. And to my left, I have Dr. Nonika Datta, who teaches history in the Delhi University. Thanks for being with us today. Well, to begin with you, Dr. Mubin, we all know that women definitely are a marginalized section in our country and even everywhere else. But when we talk of these migrant women, they are particularly vulnerable. How do you look at this?
See, I'm glad that, Lottie, that you've taken up this issue to discuss, because I personally feel that trafficking, especially when it's related to women, it's the most serious, it's the most serious thing related to exploitation of things are happening. There is some kind of awareness about this. We are discussing this topic. Like what Indrani ji said, we need to check the socio-economic, political, ethnic, religious, all factors that are responsible for this situation of women. And I'm sorry to say that we women still are the most unfed, poor, uneducated, denied, deprived, vulnerable and marginalized section, despite all the efforts done nationally and internationally. So we need to look upon this situation as a complex situation and policy decision. Apart from that, there is this women movement also working. They have added to bringing these problems at the forefront, intellectual women who are a face of these deprived women, I would say, vulnerable section of a society. So we need to work on various paradigms. That is what is going to help. But that doesn't mean that there is a very rosy picture, things are not happening. It has been happening since ancient times, medieval times, colonial, post-colonial. But at present, there is a situation where we can check. My contention, my problem, my, you can say, problem is that if things are changing, then why is it not visible? If 181 is there, then why is it that the crime is not decreasing?
Correct. I think this is an answer that Khadija would be very appropriate.
See, my whole understanding of the whole system is based on my practical experiences. I'm not a scholar, so I can't say scholarly things. My idea of migration and women's issues are, see, migration is very healthy for any population. Always the populations have moved for development, for employment, for agriculture, for trading, forever we have done. But when migration combines with sexual exploitation, migration combines with wage exploitation, the construction side, what I've seen that it's a general mindset. You are a woman, so you'll get lesser money, even though there is a labor law which says that there has to be an equal pay, but they get lesser money, wages. There's no facility of, whatever there is in the law. Even my experience was even the senior labor officers also didn't knew that this is there in the law. So you have to enforce that. We have one very interesting situation. We have bestest of laws, but worst kind of practices. And labor laws have so many facilities for women, but nobody is implementing it. So, like what she said, that 181 is there, but crime is not getting checked. My opinion about is, crime is there in the society. The state responsibility, I'm very recently changed the fences, otherwise I was on the other side of the fence. The state's basic responsibility under the Constitution of India is to provide mechanism to get justice. If there is a crime, some violation happens to me, there has to be a very nice.
So basically what you're saying is the policies may be there, the laws may be there, the one is lack of awareness, and the other is that this is a lot which is actually suffering. They can hardly stand up for themselves and really ask for any kind of rights, so they are exploited.
They are exploited and they feel very insecure also. If they see, like, they are dependent on 150 rupees. If I speak about that, I'll lose that.
Lose that 150.
Then what will I eat?
That's right. I would want Indrani ji to comment on this.
See, it is true that we do have gender equality sort of put within our labor law framework.
Right.
It's there,
Correct.
to a greater or lesser degree, but it is very much there. And it's also true that our labor laws are the worst implemented laws in this country.
Right.
And the reason I believe is that
of internal migration. Well, if we go by this report, Nonika, it says that 10% to India's GDP, right, on one hand. And on the other, demand for cheap labor has also increased, as we all know. But the truth is, as she said, you know, the way they are marginalized and the way they are discriminated against in the workforce, this is something which still remains invisible to many, whether it is the policy makers or the authorities and what have you. So where do you think we need to make a start? Because this is such an area, it is so dark that even making a foray into it is very difficult.
Well, I'm sure there are more expert opinions on this, but I'm not going to speak about the policy making as such, but I would say that first of all, I think one must recognize that it is the migrants' experiences, the multiplicity of that experience that needs to be studied and understood in detail. We just can't, first of all, I mean, women are not a homogeneous category. There are women, and there are different experiences of women. You know, intersected by caste, class, and you know, other kind of distinctions, and the point to, and religious distinctions say that the way, I mean, if we look at, as has been pointed out, if we look at the socio-economic context of these migrants, then the story would become much more complex. Then we would not, we would also look at kind of the specificity of their experiences and the problems that they are facing at the ground level. And those need to be recognized. I think the first intervention, because, I mean, labor, you know, and because it was the place of birth that was recognized as, in the census enumeration, as you know, and it was patterns were not enumerated in the way they are being enumerated now. I mean, since 1961 at least, you know, there has been a substantial change. But the point is that even now, the kind of focus on migrants seems to be at a very macro level.
That's true.
So we tend to make huge generalizations without looking at the intricacies and the complexities of their local.
Welcome back. This is Gender Discourse, and today we are talking about the reality of internal migration. Well, Indrani ji, we all know that, you know, women come from poor backgrounds and they all want to come for greener pastures into the cities, thinking that, okay, this is a place where we will be able to earn a decent living and have a decent life. But when we actually talk of wages, the equality of wages is far from reality. So how serious do you think this issue is, and what kind of interventions are needed to check that?
Well, I just want to answer this by at two levels. See, the first point is as regards the wages question, and one point I have already raised regarding the question of brick kiln workers, the problem of invisible labor of women. The other question is of domestic workers, which has definitely come up. And there is a one simple point. You see, domestic workers are not given the status of, they're not included in the schedules of employment under the Minimum Wages Act. So there are no notified minimum wages for domestic workers in most of the states in the country. So domestic, including Delhi, there is no minimum wage for domestic workers. So that, of course, is one of the central things. Related to that, there will be a whole lot of other social security provisions which have to be put in place And thirdly, related an additional aspect, particularly for women, for poorer women, classes of women workers, such as the domestic workers, is the question of the living conditions in which they are located as migrants. When they come in, how do they find a place for themselves in the city? There are very serious problems.
Factor to the statist agencies. You know, again, you know, the story would just not.
True. I think
resolved.
she's very right. The point that she made is very pertinent, that on the one hand, when we are not even ready to recognize the plight that these women face, how are we actually going to think of ways and means of making their life better? So, I mean, who is to be questioned here? Is anybody even ready to do anything? So, where does one make a start?
See, migration for development, migration for education, migration for job opportunities is a good thing. But migration, forced migration because of marriage, because of working in circus for various labor employment, and also there is this one new, I mean, being in media and being in news, you must have heard, there are migration of young girls who are just 13 or 14 years old, and they are forced into marriages in several states. So migration, the nature of migration also has to be, you know, considered. And the situation, the socio-economic situation of the woman, the space that Nanika was talking about, what is that makes her to migrate? That is very important. We spoke about the northeast girls coming from northeastern states, their security, their prejudices towards them. In general, we need to recognize, we need to identify the nature of migrations and the reason, the cause for migration, whether that migration is for the development of that individual woman, or whether it is due to several socio-economic problems or due to criminal tendencies, maybe she's forced into flesh trade. We all know these kind of things happening. Khadija is here, she knows
For law, but my idea is that if it's a mandatory registration of migration, migrating laborers, if there is a system where if I'm going to some town for some work, let me get myself registered, why I'm moving. And especially there has to be a real check on minors migrating minus their families. Minors migrating from one place to other, minor women, without their families. That has to be really taken care of, because that is the basic. And you know, like I'm receiving every day at least minimum 2 to 3 cases where young small girls, 14, 13 years, 12 years, they are being brought from villages to Delhi, and via Delhi they are sent to some other places. Many out of country migration are also happening. So those things, and what she was mentioning of with Nata Pratha,
I'd like to say thank you to all 4 of you for coming today and for discussing this issue with me. Well, folks, the point is that it's nothing but a measure of our double standards that we have no qualms about using the services of migrants while railing about their being responsible for the ills of urban living. The government needs to create more employment opportunities in rural areas, as one of my panelists said. Giving out wages for a fixed number of days of work alone is not enough. There should be productive employment the whole year round. For this, there has to be a greater investment in rural areas and better road and rail connectivity. Improving skill sets in rural areas should also be a priority. What the government should be aiming at is reverse migration, probably. People will go where there are jobs, and it is but obvious that they would prefer to stay as close to home as possible. It is only when reports like the one by UNESCO come out that this issue comes into focus. For the most part, internal migrants are a part of our lives that we prefer not to acknowledge. Isn't it time we did something about it than mere lip service? Think about it. On that note, it's time to wrap up this discussion. So till next time, this is Lottie Alaric saying goodbye and take very good care of yourselves.